What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Nuts and Bolts Sports. Raj, Jordan, and Henry, and joining us today. Second time with me, first time with these two guys. Nick Andre is back with us. How you doing, Nick?
What's up, y'all? Happy to be back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, man. I know we haven't talked to you, I think, like since the beginning of the bubble when all this stuff started going down. How was your bubble experience before we get into what we're talking about today?
You talking about as far like the NBA bubble, pretty much?
Yeah, the whole bubble experience. Did you have fun? Was it kind of crazy?
Um,
What were your thoughts on it all?
Surprisingly, it was great. I think we've probably got some of the most competitive basketball just being in this bubble. I mean, I think guys really had an opportunity to especially with a lot of travel and they had a chance to really just really get the proper rest that they needed and just get back at it. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's probably some of the best basketball that we've seen in probably a long time. And the NBA did a really good job. I mean, zero positive COVID tests, getting up to the championship, actually being able to end it with a championship. You couldn't ask for anything better than that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we all kind of gave our congratulations to the NBA last time. I think Jordan's celebration is kind of just winding down to an end here after his Lakers win.
Still going.
I agree with everything that you said, though, Nick. It was kind of an incredible thing. And to kind of bring things full circle here, what we're going to be doing today is we're kind of just recapping the entire season as a whole. It's been quite a bit of a journey, I think, for all of us. I know, like, at the beginning of this thing, we weren't even doing this show. We started doing this thing at the beginning of the bubble, and we've had different people come through and whatnot, and now we got our group. But I think it's just kind of, before we sort of get into our thoughts, it's kind of good to sort of run through the timeline of how this season kind of went down, because we're sitting here October 14th and recording this thing. Let's rewind all the way back to October 22nd, 2019. We're almost at the 1 year mark where we got the season tip off. We had the big LA battle. We were supposed to have Zion's debut that night, but he obviously had the preseason injury, and I think a lot of people came into this season with a lot of excitement. There were big off-season deals. There were these new duos that everybody was backing. Not the duo that Jordan was backing in LA, a different duo in LA that a lot of people were backing for that championship. But we kind of run through the season. We're having a lot of good games, a lot of competitive play. One of the better seasons in recent memory, just sort of before the bubble, and then obviously March 11th comes down. This COVID stuff is sort of taken over the entire world. Prior to all this, Rudy Gobert tests positive, and then the dominoes start to fall from there. Season shuts down March 11th. We're all kind of left up in the air until about mid-June, I think it was, when the first report started to come through that the season was going to be going into bubble, that we're going to be moving down to Walt Disney World and taking the entire 22 team group down there. There was some back and forth as to how many teams are actually going to be joining. Was it just going to be playoff teams? Was it going to be 20 teams? Ended up being 22. Went down early July. They were down there. They were quarantining, and then we got our official kickoff to the bubble July 30th. About mid-August, we started the playoffs. August 15th, it was about the play-in games, and then kind of mixed in there. We had the strikes with the Milwaukee Bucks sitting out that one game against the Magic and all the other teams, and that kind of pushed everything back a couple days. We had back in February, we had All-Star. It's kind of crazy, and now here, October 11th, the season officially ended. Just a wild journey, just kind of thinking about it as a whole. So Nick, I asked you about the bubble. Now let's rewind even further back, and I'm going to toss it to you first since you're our special guest today. What are your kind of overall perception on how this season went? Are you kind of exhausted by this point? Did you love it? What's your general feeling here?
It's kind of a mixture of both. I mean, I'm obviously excited that the season was able to progress even past all of the coronavirus situation, but I'm also kind of exhausted as well because this is by far the longest NBA season that I've ever really experienced. But I mean, outside of that, just going into the season, obviously the Battle of LA. I mean, those two teams, just the excitement there. I mean, I obviously had the Clippers, but obviously I was wrong there. But and also congrats to you, Jordan. Congrats to the championship win. But yeah, there was just a lot of excitement, from the LA teams to Milwaukee coming back. Everybody was anticipating what they were going to do. Like you said, Zion coming in. I mean, well, obviously, his season was kind of set back just from his injury in the preseason. But I mean, just looking at this team, I mean, this was probably the best offseason that we had, and some of the most competitive basketball as well. I mean, obviously, there was a lot that went on. The Warriors were not themselves with Steph Curry being injured, Klay Thompson not playing this season, and also in Brooklyn with KD not playing this season. So obviously, I mean, there was a lot that, we did want to see, but, that we didn't have an opportunity to. But I think overall, like if I had to grade it from like, 1 to 10, as far as the NBA season, I would give it probably a 9.5.
Yeah, what's kind of crazy about all that is you're saying like the Warriors weren't top, Brooklyn wasn't top, like and all
Yeah.
these injuries are still going to be coming back next year, and like the season was still as good as it was without all those top tier players playing this season. Henry, what are your kind of thoughts on all this thing? Because we've been getting your thoughts through the bubble, but we haven't really heard about what you were feeling up through March and kind of like how that transition went from March to July, that massive break and whatever.
As a mirror, the sports world fall apart when Rudy Gobert
Mhm.
tested positive. I feel like when that happened, everything stopped. Like it just became so apparent in the United States that this is real, So from March to June to hearing the first report about a bubble experiment, I was like, you know what? At this point, whatever it takes. Like, I don't know what the hell they're like planning to do with it or how they're planning to execute it, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna execute it. Because the NBA is pretty competent when it comes to the safety of their players. But it's been long. I'm exhausted. I'm not even a player, but just like finally getting to this point, it just goes to show, like, damn, a full calendar year of NBA basketball. There is that gap where there's absolutely nothing going on. That was probably the weirdest point in everybody's lives. But to be here, it kind of feels like it happened in the blink of an eye, because it was like March, now it's October. We have a champion. The Lakers, like if there's any way that it should have ended, like I think it should have been the Lakers because of everything that happened this year. LeBron winning Finals MVP, but just the whole bubble experience, I feel like something that hit me was seeing media people take pictures and then post it on their social media on their last day in the bubble, and then just talking about like this is a once in a lifetime experience. And I'm like, before you know it, we're all just gonna be looking back at this point in time. We're like, remember this, remember that, like, and it just made me appreciate it a lot more. Like as much adversity as there was, it is a time to be alive. Like there's just so much uniqueness in this year and how like people are innovating and just pushing each other, to overcome these adversities. That happened in the NBA. That happened with the media people. So kudos to everybody in the NBA, the players, the staff, the Adam Silver, for putting all this together. So my satisfaction with this is I thought we saw some of the best playoff basketball in my entire life. Like, when are we ever going to experience something like this again? I don't think we are. I like I said, like as a fan and just of the sport of basketball, I really appreciate it. In my rating, since we're doing ratings, I give this a 10. I give this a solid 10 because it's too much like a movie. No one can write this type of stuff.
Definitely.
So Jordan, how do you feel? I know Jordan came out with the best outcome, but in terms of just the bubble experience itself, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, the whole season was. I think exhausting is a word. Like, I don't mean that in like a negative way. Like, I think we always talk about the NBA as like a year-round 365 league, and it really was in this case with the break that we had. And I think that the excitement going into the beginning of the year was for all the parity, right? Because we had the Warriors kind of breaking up a little bit with KD being hurt and then going to Brooklyn. So we knew that there's going to be somebody else was going to have a chance for once after their little run there with those guys. And so that was the excitement, right? You had the Clippers, the whole Kawhi free agency thing was crazy. Lakers finally trading for AD. You had Giannis doing Giannis things. Like there was so much optimism. Even the Sixers at one point, which seems like forever ago, we kind of thought they might be good. So there was so much optimism for like, this is going to be a competitive regular season. This is going to be an even better postseason. And it really like did live up to the hype in different ways. You obviously you had the playoffs were obviously, being in the bubble and having the Clippers fall apart and having, the Bucks kind of fall apart was definitely not, I think, on anybody's radar. I mean, I think we would have picked both of them to at least make the conference finals. So that was a little different. But at the same time, it brought us such, cool opportunities to see Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero and all those guys in the Heat just come together and just dominate guys. We got a chance to see Jason Tatum step into his own and really be like a bona fide star in this league and carry the Celtics to within a game or two of the finals. We saw, the Nuggets. I mean, Jamal Murray and Jokic turning into just a deadly 1-2 duo, coming back from 3-1 twice, including an awesome first round. That Jamal Murray Mitchell first round was like amazing, just fastball after fastball from both of those guys. So it was really cool in that regard. Obviously, like I'm excited the way it turned out, and I guess it feels more rewarding because it took so long to get to the top of the mountain, both in waiting a decade and also like this whole year itself. But it was definitely probably, I mean, it has to be one of the most it's not the most unique NBA season I think we ever had, right? Because you have
Yeah.
all the type, you
Has
have
to be.
a season, you have great games going on, and then to be honest with you, before we even get to the corona, I mean the coronavirus changes everything, right? But even before we get to that, especially being like a Lakers fan going through like you get to January and you have everything that happens with Kobe and his daughter and all those people, that was like life altering for so many people and the basketball community in general, right? I mean, you saw how many people were affected by that, players, coaches, everybody on the TNT crew. So that was like a whole thing within itself. We already knew the season was different once that happened. And then to have the break and this postponement, honestly, there was doubt of like whether or not this was going to come back, right? There's no game plan for this before. The NBA and all the other leagues too put this stuff together on the fly. And, echoing what Nick said, I mean, they did a great job, right? 0 positive tests and out of 172 games, the bubble was executed, flawlessly. I mean, that's the model right there for everything moving forward. If you need to do it again, this is how they handled it. The players seemed overall happy with it. I know they were tired by the end, but like there were no major complaints, right? I think the biggest complaint was like the food the first week. And I actually watched the video today. That was the issue. The food the first week by the Disney hotels, it wasn't quite up to par. And they brought the chefs in and they took care of it. Like Silver took care of everything right away. And that proves why he's the best commissioner of the 4 major sports. So kudos to them for knocking that out of the park. I agree with Henry saying this was like some of the best playoff basketball because of like you're not flying back and forth east to west coast, stuff like that. All the travel. You got guys, getting recovery right away, getting out there. Same arena, same like shooting vision, with the backboard and stuff. I know that the players talked about that as well. So it was just a really fun, really competitive season. You've heard some people want to be negative and talk about how it's not a legit championship or this and that. I think it's completely the opposite. If the Lakers hadn't won it, if the Heat had won it, you would have been like, wow, they had to go through so much.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that won it had to go through so much, stay in the bubble the longest, deal with the most pressure and all that stuff. And so I'm if I had to give it a grade, 10 out of 10. Don't know if I want to do the whole like year with a break again. I'd rather just like go through the season and playoffs.
Yeah.
But a really unique season. And just a really fun, overall season. And obviously I'm thrilled with the way it came out.
Yeah, I think you can't be like upset with how everything turned out. Obviously, we had to have the break. We had to be patient. We as sports fans don't like to be patient. We hate it when there's a timeout with 3 seconds left on the clock and we're just like sitting there waiting for that 90 seconds as time expires on the timeout clock. But yeah, we were rewarded, and that's a testament to Adam Silver. I mean, we talked about it last time. Adam Silver and the entire NBA that put this thing together, for them to just stick to the structure that they had formed from the beginning and not, every time it was even like bent or flexed a little bit. Daniel House was out of there. Lemon Pepper Lou here in the comments got kicked out for a little bit. He had that temporary suspension. Like they stuck to their guns and they got it done. And it's a testament to the NBA. It's a testament to Adam Silver. It's a testament to the health officials. It's a testament to the Walt Disney World staff. It's a testament to the players and their families for making that sacrifice. Like you have to give them all credit. And like Jordan, to talk about like what you were talking about with like how the Kobe thing impacted this season, we all love Adam Silver and we understand what a great commissioner he is. But like right before Kobe passed, David Stern passed, and that was a big blow on the NBA family. I know he was a controversial commissioner, but I mean, like he changed the game. Like he impacted the game in such a crucial way in terms of where it was when he took over the league and where it was today. Like we would not be here without him. So like to lose him back in January was also pretty tough, and it just kind of it was like one thing after another leading up to the shutdown, and it just kind of like, I know people were out there saying like, do we even need basketball at this point? There's bigger things going on in the world, and like I agree with that to a certain extent. I was sort of stressing myself out, thinking like, why am I sitting here thinking about basketball when there are things like bigger than us going on in the world? And obviously the NBA kind of put a little bit of a spotlight on that going down there, whether it be social issues or the virus itself. They kind of took matters into their own hands, and that's something that the NBA has always been good at. I mean, you look back as recently as the Donald Sterling thing back in 2014, players and coaches took that thing into their own hands before anybody else did. And that Adam Silver's like, nope, he's out, get him out of here. And we kind of like, I think we sort of set up a framework for what this league can be. And, we took stepping stones, and obviously these two things are very different, but like at the end of the day, it just shows to what the potential of this league can be, for the players. Like I understand that they had to go through the emotional stress and the time and whatnot to go down there into the bubble and take that on. But like, I think a lot of them did want to play. I think they wanted to play. They wanted to finish out the season. LeBron wanted to go there and finish out the season. Like, and the ultimate goal was a championship for so many of these guys. And then to go down there and get, peak performance because they're not worried about travel, they're not worried about all that kind of stuff. They have proper breaks in between every single game. There were very few back-to-backs. Like, it just set the template for such good basketball. And like each of you have said here, it was the best basketball that I can remember, like since I started watching back in like 03, 04 when LeBron was like a rookie. Like I literally don't remember the last time we got this quality of play, despite the fact that we've had so many good players in the league the past 20 years. Like, and I think we're not going to get this every single year. It's just not going to happen. It's too extreme for the players to be cooped up in like a hotel or whatever and go and play, like, especially with 30 teams coming down for a full season. That's nearly impossible for it to happen in the way that it did. Like, it is kind of crazy. And I'm extremely happy about it. I think, like, one thing, I think it was Jordan, I think it was just you that said the thing about the Sixers. So that kind of got me thinking, like, where were we all before this season started in terms of like what we were expecting out of the play? Because I know I've said it here, like, I was expecting the Sixers to be the number one team in the East, and that fell like real fast. Like, by the second week, I was like, I do not feel confident about that prediction anymore. But
everything was pretty much crazy. Everything was pretty much crazy, right?
It really did. And like, I mean, it kind of started off the bat with that first game with that LA matchup. It was kind of a back and forth, and I think people were expecting it to go one way. It ended up going another way. I see Jordan shaking his head there.
I'm so frustrated.
I certainly came into the season still with Lakers as the favorites because they had LeBron, and any team with LeBron as the favorite. I think coming into the season, you kind of shuffle the cards as the season progresses and see how the team is doing. But coming into the season, I had the Lakers versus the Sixers in the finals, and Sixers are far away from it, but the Lakers made it there. So let's kind of like do a snake draft here, and let's start with Jordan. What were you kind of like thinking coming into the season? Like, any players, any sort of teams that you wanted to highlight?
Man, I guess you could say I whiffed because I wrote it down, put it out there before. I said Clippers over Sixers in the finals.
Oh, man. You must feel real bad right now.
I'm shedding tears over here for it. I had that. I think I had like Embiid for MVP. I think I had I don't even. Trust me. I'd ask anybody. I don't.
You reached on that one.
I'm not a Sixers fan at all, but I thought, if there's 1 year they might put it together, maybe it'll be this, and I got suckered into it. So I had that. I think I had Embiid for actually, I had Embiid for Defensive Player of the Year, which I screwed up. I should have had Simmons for that because then at least I would have been close. I want to say for MVP, I think I fell on the trap of picking Curry, and unfortunately, like, bad luck came in and with the hand injury, so kind of over there. I had the Lakers, doing well. I just didn't know how well things were going to click. I was, negative as I always am. I always rather be, more pessimistic and be like pleasantly surprised than be like all the way up here and be super disappointed. So I kind of rode with that wave as it got going. But yeah, I just expected, just such parity throughout the league. And I think we did get that in a sense, right? I mean, you had, obviously the Warriors weren't anywhere near the top of the standing. So you had these, Lakers and Clippers fighting for the 1 seed. You had, Boston and Milwaukee and Toronto as well, competing for that 1 seed. I didn't think that Tatum was going to come out. I think Tatum was like one of the biggest surprises. Like, we'd seen flashes of it, right, as a rookie going up against LeBron and like the Eastern Conference Finals and whatnot, but then he kind of regressed last year. And you could put that on an aging Horford, the whole Kyrie toxic situation, but he really came into his own this year. I didn't think he was going to be as good as he was, and he was absolutely phenomenal and kind of asserted himself as a star in this league, and a guy still completely on the rise. So I mean, that's basically where I had it. I forget. I was pretty much wrong on all the other predictions. I do it every year. I do Coach of the Year, Defensive Player, Rookie. I think Rookie of the Year was Zion, but like the injuries thing kept him out. If they would have played like 15 more games, I think he could have stolen it. Yeah. But yeah, that's all I had. What about you, Henry?
And the whole Curry thing, I thought he was going to win MVP. I was like, there's no way Steph Curry is not going to win MVP this season, because now he doesn't have KD. He's going to go back to the Steph Curry god that made him, the shooter that he is, and, the figure that he is in the NBA. But then just unfortunate injuries, his wrist and everything. I'm like, okay, that's out the window. That's one prediction that I was like kind of hoping for. In terms of who I predicted to win the championship, I think this was the first year now that I had no clue. I know like there's like several picks, but in terms of like having a definite pick, I couldn't decide, because this is the first time in like 4 or 5 years that it wasn't that we knew it wasn't going to be the Warriors in the playoffs. So it's like, okay, is it going to be the Lakers? Is it going to be the Clippers? This was before, we all saw Paul George just not play like Paul George in the playoffs. I was thinking like they got Paul George, Kawhi, blah blah blah. Like they got Lou Will. They have the. I thought they had a more complete team than the Lakers did at that time. But obviously with
playoff P.
Yeah, exactly. I hear playoff P. I'm like, all right,
pandemic P.
Pandemic P. That showed off, but
Ball game.
now that like really brings me to like believe like what can I predict next season? Like, because honestly,
you lost confidence.
No, honestly, because like, and then I was thinking like, okay, this is Kyrie's season to prove everyone wrong that he is a stable leader, and not just for his team but in the league. But God, he's just such a controversial person. Like
Kyrie and stable do not go together in a sentence.
Kyrie, man,
Henry, I wouldn't even like have put that so far past you like after the first few games because he was good in Brooklyn and like especially that debut
game
where he dropped like 50
in his first game.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, I saw that and I was like, even though he missed a game winner against the Wolves his first game, he scored 50 points. I'm like, okay, he's gonna put this team on his back. Hopefully, like because we all see like he says some outlandish shit like the Kyrie's gonna say Kyrie and do Kyrie things, but when he talks about the flat earth and everything like that, that's when he started losing credibility, not just as a player but as a person. It's just like but I'll give him credit though. He was one of the first people to go against the idea of the bubble in terms of the safety of the players, because I really did. That's something that I remember. Like, he got kicked out of his Nets group chat, blah blah blah. He was saying like, "Well, no, I don't want to go to the bubble and stuff." And I was like, you know what? It's understandable, man, because at that point the hysteria of the pandemic was through the roof. Everybody didn't know what to expect. So for him to realize, like I care about the safety of my health and everything like that. Like I was like, you know what? Props to Kyrie, man. Like, and then others started following his lead. That's why Avery Bradley opted out. We saw other players and stuff, and like now the NFL had players opting out too. Now that became an option, I think, because of Kyrie. It wasn't like a yes, you have to play. It was like you have an option now, So I'll give him that. Like it took a little craziness on his part, to like get his voice out there, but hopefully he can bounce back from that. And then Lakers just winning the championship. I was like, I'm not surprised. Again, congrats to Jordan. Everybody was saying it. Stephen A. and all of them were saying, especially Stephen A. His prediction was always the Lakers are going to winning the championship. And then aside from that, obviously nobody predicted this pandemic to happen. Nobody expected like, I can't wait till the bubble. And see, like as Jordan's raising up the gnome to remind me.
You had no props today.
This is always in the room, so I just keep it handy.
So, like obviously the most unexpected season in our lives. I don't think there's going to be anything afterwards that can top this season in terms of like how unexpected it is, but also just the level of cinematic factors. It's just like I can't wait till the documentary comes out of this season. It's gonna be crazy. Aside from that, there was a point where we were live tweeting The Last Dance. Like, yeah, people were live tweeting that.
I always forget about The Last Dance.
He's still the GOAT, but I just forgot about that for a second.
I was like, damn, we're really live tweeting a documentary right now.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a crazy time, but I don't know, man. Like I said, and probably the biggest thing in this year has made me appreciate sports much more ever at any point in my life.
Great.
Because now that the season is over, I'm like, the season is over. Like Jordan said, like we will wake up and be like, it's game day, like, or damn, there's gonna be a good game too. There's a game 6 or blah blah. Like Devin Booker's run with the Suns and everything. Like it's not a distraction. Sports aren't a distraction. They're an award for functional society, and that's why like that. I heard someone say that. I'm like, that's so true. Like we deserve this as people because we see, the trajectory of where people want our progression to go in terms of all these other factors outside of basketball. And now that now that the NBA is synonymous to all this, I'm like, I appreciate this even more. Like, screw the ratings, screw the people that are saying like, fuck the ratings, man. Like, that's not what it's all about. Like, it goes much further than that. And I'm happy to be, being alive to see this, and being alive to be a part of this. But whoever hasn't spoken, please just say their thoughts because I'm a little emotional right now.
I think Andre, you take it because we haven't heard your thoughts before you came into the season.
in all honesty, like I can vaguely remember because I know I wrote an article like a year ago, like just kind of like putting up my predictions. I know I had the Clippers winning it all, even though I wasn't so sure about the Clippers, but I was kind of leaning towards the Clippers winning it all just because I liked, the connection of Kawhi and Paul George, but then also like the depth of the Clippers and Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, Zubac, Patrick Beverley, and those guys. I believe I had Kawhi. I did have Kawhi winning MVP, but then again, I kind of like took that back because I knew him low managing a lot was kind of like gonna like take that away from him. But then again, like I had a lot of surprising like takes. Like I had the Hawks making the playoffs. Obviously, that didn't happen. I think I had a few other teams like doing it. I think I had Miami as like the Hawks. I did actually have the Hawks like getting like the 8th seed, but obviously that didn't go so well. And I'm trying to think of some other stuff I can't remember, but yeah, obviously, with the whole pandemic and everything just kind of like completely went the other way. But it's just like crazy how like you can like look back at like those predictions and like see like, okay, this guy's going to do this guy's going to do that, but then as the season goes on, it's like it just goes like a whole different direction. Like for instance, like I remember when Kyrie went to Brooklyn and Boston got Kemba Walker, I was talking with a friend and we were just kind of debating on he's like a really big Kyrie fan. He's like, oh, Boston not gonna do anything without Kyrie, this and that. And I was like, all right, just wait on it. Like, you know what I mean? And then Boston had a really pretty productive season, to say the least. They were like, what, the 3rd, 4th seed, I believe. And they were able to at least make the Eastern Conference Finals. Jason Tatum, like Jordan said, emerged into a premier all-star, especially after making his first season. And then also the emergence of Jaylen Brown and all these other guys. So, I think the one thing that the season has showed is like, a lot of guys really were able to come into their own even like before the pandemic and after the pandemic. And also I want to say congrats to these players too on just staying ready even like past the pandemic, once the NBA season went to the bubble. Because obviously once the coronavirus first hit, we were all in quarantine. Players weren't able to really like practice, work out and everything. So it was really difficult for these guys to really stay ready, and just give props to them for just keeping themselves in shape, keeping themselves active, and being able to
Danny Green didn't do jack shit.
Danny Green.
Break. Sorry, that's like the one thing I'm still heated about.
And Jared Dudley too. Just looking at him, but
the GOAT bench guy.
Jared Dudley talks so much on social media.
He does.
I'm like, bro, you ain't do shit. Like, you do nothing. Yeah,
and then he comes out there looking like he's about over 300 pounds. Like it's so crazy,
bro. Jared Dudley like one of those.
But yeah, But like I said, like big congrats to these players for just really staying ready and just providing us the probably like arguably the best basketball that we've seen. You had Damian Lillard showing out, Devin Booker leading the Suns to that perfect record, even though they didn't make the playoffs, which kind of sucked for them. Yeah. But also, LeBron, and all these other guys, just really just really understanding like the just understand like what was at stake for them, like, you know what I mean? So big props to those players for just staying ready and just giving us the best basketball in the bubble.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because we saw like videos of like Serge Ibaka running in his hallways and stuff. Like they did whatever they could to stay ready. Yeah. And like some guys like Danny Green, I guess didn't do that, but there were a lot of guys that were putting in effort wherever they could because some of these guys like Steph Curry didn't even have a hoop at his house, so he had to like install one in his driveway. I remember hearing him talk about that on like Kimmel or something like that. There are these ridiculous stories. I kind of want to open the floor now to discussion about like the actual play that we got and just whatever like stands out to you, whether it's like a certain performance or if you have like a highlight game that you want to flash back to. And I want to kind of start where what I talked about earlier is All-Star. Like that feels like it was so long ago, but if you guys remember, this is like probably the best All-Star game we've ever had. That 157-155 win for Team LeBron. The guys playing defense. Kyle Lowry trying to take charges at the end of the game. There was like a fight at the end almost. Like that was still one of the highlights of the season for me because All-Star is always fun, even though the past few years like the dunk contest and stuff have kind of dropped off a little bit in terms of quality. Like it's always just the one weekend where the entire basketball community just comes together and just kind of like lets things go and just has fun with whatever is put on display. And when the All-Star game, which is supposed to be the highlight event, even though it's usually Saturday night, like the All-Star game is supposed to be a highlight event because it's the All-Stars putting on a performance, putting on a show for us, and for them to actually go out there and put on the effort because you had the competitive aspect of it, you had the charity aspect of it, and those guys actually like going at one another and putting on like a show. That's kind of where I wanted to start. Does anybody even like remember All-Star Weekend? I'll leave it open to whoever kind of wants to take it.
Go ahead, Henry.
Oh, yeah, fine.
Definitely do.
You want to go? All right. Now that you bring that up, I was thinking about that the other day because I was like, it feels so long ago. It doesn't even feel like that happened this year. But that All-Star weekend, do you guys remember Buddy Hield won the 3-point contest on a game winner?
I didn't remember that.
Yeah. See, like I was like,
I honestly don't.
I was like, wow, that's one of the best 3-point contests I've ever witnessed ever in my life. And then that was followed by one of the, like, obviously, Aaron Gordon, he's had some of the best dunk contests in his career. Again, that happened with Derrick Jones Jr., him jumping over Taco Fall. And I'm like, God, this year's the year, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then the All-Star game happened. That was the first time I saw him put maximum effort. I got chills, especially at the end. Like, I seeing Kyle, like you brought up Kyle Lowry. I specifically remember Kyle Lowry taking charges and everything. I was like, this is a freaking All-Star game. But then they're playing like this is a game 7. So in terms of what the NBA can do, in terms of, a format change moving forward, I think they're headed in the right direction, because some things became stale and stagnant. But now with Adam Silver, I feel like he's become the most innovative commissioner in sports right now. So I know there's a lot of things to like. What else happened that we forgot because it's been so long?
I don't know. Do either of you guys want to touch? Do you have
Jordan,
something?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jordan.
First, I just want to say, completely forgot we had an All-Star game.
Yeah, right.
you said it, and I was like, "Oh, we did have one. I think it was in Chicago."
It was like right before all this stuff went down. So
literally, no. I mean, I was thinking about some of the moments, like not necessarily that maybe we would have forgotten, but just like that are kind of lost in the shadow of maybe the bubble and the break and everything. Like we did have the debut of Zion, right, and that was like the cool thing. He goes like 4 for 4, 30 against the first. There's a controversy at the end where like he doesn't get to play and like he's kind of a little upset about it. But like that building was electric, and he had some really good games. Like I said, he played 10, 15 more games. He probably steals Rookie of the Year, and we're having a huge debate with him and Ja.
First rookie to live up to the hype, right? Like since like LeBron that's come into the league with this much hype, I can't think of another.
Agreed. Yeah, especially as a number 1 pick. I mean, you asked me to look at some of the games, like just off the top of my head, like we had way back in like October, early November, we had you had Lakers Mavs and you had Luka LeBron, an absolute shootout. Danny Green to tie it. Yeah, they were just trading below. And I don't even know if Porzingis either played and wasn't effective or didn't play because it was like I looked at the numbers like LeBron and AD were good, but it was the Luka show for them, and it was like, oh my God, this guy's legit. He's going toe to toe with LeBron, and it was also kind of the first time I was like, oh, the Lakers may have something here with LeBron and AD. Like they're clicking real hard. You had the Celtics Clippers in February, which was the double OT game where Tatum really came out. He balled out with like 39. Yeah. Took down Kawhi, which was rare. I think Kawhi, still had like 28, but like he got outdueled in that game. Completely forgot about that one. And then you even had like Lakers Celtics, which it came down to the wire. LeBron hit that fadeaway over Jaylen Brown, and I kind of wanted to put it in here just to poke at Henry, but like at the same time, like it was cool. It was like oh my God, like A, like the Lakers are looking good. B, Boston looks really good. Like that was the first time I was like, we could have a Lakers Celtics final, and now it's always good for the league, right? The history of that, right? All the finals they've been in. So there was just some of those cool moments, and then just getting to the bubble. I mean, the Jamal, it seems like the Jamal Murray Mitchell matchup was like before the bubble, because that's how long.
I forgot about the Sun streak at the beginning of the bubble, like during the regular season. Right? I completely forgot about that.
You know what I forgot? Y'all want to know what I forgot? TJ Warren.
TJ Warren,
TJ Warren 57, yeah.
But that that came before that Denver Utah series, which was that was the highlight that I had on mind. I told you guys to pick games, and I picked an entire season because that Denver Utah series was
crazy.
So much fun. Yeah, it was
7 games, and Mitchell Murray with their just flamethrower after flamethrower, both of them. I mean, Mitchell, he obviously didn't play enough games to technically qualify, but I think he still had the playoffs with like 36 and a half a game. I mean, he was ridiculous. And then Murray obviously continued that up until the conference final. So, like, I mean, there were just a lot of good moments that I feel like we could probably uncover like 30 more if we had time. That just kind of got lost in the shuffle. Yeah. So it was a wild year.
Yeah. What else you got, Nick?
As far as games, man, I mean, it's just like crazy. Like, it makes you realize how damn long the season really was. But obviously that Clippers Lakers Christmas game, to me, that one really stands out. That was a really competitive game, going down to
that one.
I forgot about that. I went there too.
for sure. Going down to Patrick Beverly blocking, swatting LeBron.
I hate Beverly.
And then also another game for me could have been honestly, it's kind of like a real relevant game, but the Hawks. I think this was like in December in Miami. I think like Trae Young hit a basket, and then he was like kind of yelling like it's over. And then Miami just ended up coming back with like 15 seconds.
They did blow that game. That's right. I remember I was like, you can't run your mouth. Nope.
Exactly.
Something else that I remembered. Oh no, my bad. I thought you were done.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No.
Which Celtics game are you gonna pick, Henry?
No. Do you guys remember when Zach LaVine against the Charlotte Hornets?
Yeah, the Arch.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. That was this season, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It was. God, man.
One of the craziest moments.
I'm telling you, man. And then
go ahead. You got it.
Oh yeah, and then probably another game, like a game that like I really was impressed was Toronto Boston game 6. I mean, obviously, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I'm a big Toronto hater. I'm gonna slander Toronto all day, but the way that they fought in that game 6 and that double overtime matchup, I mean, I must say it was really impressive. Kyle Lowry was lights out. Guys like Norman Powell stepped up, and a few other guys. Serge Ibaka. I mean, but yeah, I mean that. But yeah, that was just like a really like overall like great matchup for Toronto. But as far as those games, those are probably the ones that like really stand out to me. I'm sure there's like a really like a whole lot of games where I would like really have to sit down and think about. But
when I tossed this question to you guys, I was thinking back to like that Rockets Wizards game that was like 159, 158 in regulation.
Oh
you
my
guys
God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Up like 50, 58, 56, something like that. It was ridiculous.
The protest game with the missed dunk that kind of was a dunk, but wasn't a dunk.
One, right?
Oh,
the one it bounced off his head. I mean, there were so many game. I mean, this season was I was kind of like looking through the scoreboard and stuff, and I was trying to pull, and I was also looking like box scores, and we just had that stretch where Dame was just like ridiculous, and that whole Kobe game fell like sort of in the middle of Dame's hot streak, and he sort of ruined that game for the Lakers. But like, I mean, we forget he dropped 3 60-point games this year. He had multiple 50-point games, and he carried that into the bubble. And when his team sort of was relatively healthy with Nurkic and Collins coming back there early in the bubble, they were able to put together a good enough of a run to push themselves into the playoffs and basically force themselves into that situation. And that was just a testament to like some of more of like the good play that we lost this season, like with Golden State being out, obviously with their injuries, and Brooklyn being out with their injuries. So like if Portland was 100%, they could have very much been in that sort of top 4 running for the West. And they had to play in, they had to do the play-in game to get in there. And they just barely squeaked in because they were so far out from that hole that they dug for themselves at the beginning of the season. I also wanted to give a shout out to Vince Carter because he retired after, hit that shot before the bubble went down.
Obviously, right off of that last shot.
Yeah, we were kind of holding out to see if the Hawks would be let into the bubble or whatever the restart was going to be, and they were not, unfortunately.
They were not let out of Atlanta. Not a chance.
No, they were not. They were not. They were right there. They were stuck in Atlanta while my Cavs were stuck in Cleveland. That was just a whole disaster there.
You're right about that.
But yeah, that was just some of the other stuff that I had. We've got like a couple more minutes here before we got to close things out. Did anybody else have anything else they want to throw out there in terms of anything this season, honestly?
Wow.
There's so much. There's
so much that's coming back to my mind now that
I feel like this is one of those things like in like 10 years we're gonna look back and like we're gonna forget even more, and just someone's gonna comb through. Someone's gonna have like one of those like at the end of the decade they're gonna be like, here's like a video of like everything that happened in 2020.
You're gonna be like, what?
And it's gonna be like, oh yeah, we did have a bubble. We had this. Like it's gonna seem so like random down the stretch, but like it was such an extremely unique time. That's the word we kept saying, right? It was such a unique time. It's a unique era to be in, and hopefully that's why the league's kind of taking a while to get everything settled here, and they don't know like when they're going to restart because they want to get fans in because they can't really do this again. But again, kudos to them for putting it all together. I mean, I can't imagine how many hours. You think about people like they don't work that hard. The NBA people were working very hard along with the other leagues round the clock to get a plan together, and they just executed that. The NBA did it, the NHL, the WSL, the WNBA, they all executed it to pretty much perfection, right? I mean, NHL didn't have any tests either. They have executed that stuff to perfection. So kudos to them for giving us the chance. Because without absolute perfection, I don't know if we have this, right? If the NBA, if you see it, the NFL is already like panicking, having issues with games being moved and like whatnot. But like there was never a true worry at all. So I mean, I think that's something that's going to get lost down the line, that I'm going to try and remember and try and be grateful for, because without that, we might not have had the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I think we can all sort of agree that, Henry, you said it at the top, like when the NBA shut down, the whole entire sports world shut down. It was the first domino to fall, and everything, all the college games came falling after, all the other sports came falling after. And this has sort of set a framework for the things that moved forward.
We didn't even have March Madness.
Yeah, we didn't have March Madness this
didn't.
year.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I have a list here of like things that I was just like, Mike Conley went to the Jazz at the beginning of this season. Jimmy Butler obviously went to Miami. Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul were traded for one another. That was kind of ridiculous thing that happened before the season started. Like, there was just so many storylines coming into this year, and we could really sit here for like hours upon end just digging into it, combing through it, and figuring out like what things we missed. But we do have like a bit of a time limit here, so I'm gonna have to close things off. Unfortunately, that we might have to do a part 2 to this, honestly, because
I'm down.
Part 2, Los Angeles Lakers Championship Edition.
Thank you to everybody who did join us and listen today. If we don't do a part 2 to this, what we'll be doing next week, so we're not going to be having any more episodes this week. I think the plan is to come back next week and sort of look ahead to next season, do some like early off-season predictions as to what we can kind of expect before, trades and draft and all that kind of stuff. So keep an eye out for that. You can find all our social medias down there. You can find Nuts and Bolts Sports. Also find our merch store, teamnbsmerch.com, or go to Bonfire and search for Nuts and Bolts Sports. And we'll be back here in about a week, a little less than a week, and talking more basketball. Thanks for joining us.